Let's get one thing straight. You didn't choose the war, but you survived it. And that alone makes you stronger than you even realize. Most people will never see the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They'll never know the weight you carried in silence. They won't understand the internal warfare, the doubt, the shame, the chaos in your own head, but you kept going. And that means something. That means everything. The next time we disagree, most people will never see the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They'll never know the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They won't understand the nights you can't sleep. They're not going to get it. And you see, the most brutal battles aren't fought on battlegrounds. They're fought in bedrooms, in bathrooms, in empty cars, in moments when you had every reason to give up, but didn't. And maybe nobody clapped for you. Maybe nobody noticed, but you showed up for your life anyway. You put one foot in front of the other. And that is the definition of strength. People love to celebrate visible victories, promotions, trophies, milestones. But what about the invisible ones? The decision to get out of bed when depression felt like chains. The choice to forgive when your heart was shattered. The courage to keep believing in your future when your past tried to convince you that you were broken. Here's what most don't tell you. Pain is a portal. And most will never understand what you've walked through because they were never built to handle it. But you were. Life handed you pain. And you had two options. Let it destroy you or let it develop you. The moment you decided to rise instead of run, you became dangerous in the best way possible. Because when you own your story, it no longer owns you. You stop playing small. You stop asking for permission to heal. You stop needing everyone to get it. And that's where the shift happens. That's when the wounds become wisdom. That's when the scars start speaking louder than the shame. Let's make this clear. You don't need an audience to validate your fight. You don't need applause to prove your worth. You don't owe the world an explanation for the pain you've endured. What you do owe yourself is the chance to turn that pain into power. The chance to say, yes, I went through hell, but I'm not staying there. I'm building from it. So now, instead of asking why life was unfair, start asking what it was preparing you for. Because everything you survived equipped you with empathy, with fire, with resilience. You became the person you needed back then. And now you can become that person for someone else. Someone out there is praying for the courage you already found. Don't hide your journey. Don't water it down. You fought battles no one will ever understand, and you're still standing. That means you're not just a survivor, you're a leader in disguise. So own your past, honor your struggle, and use every ounce of it to build something unbreakable. Not because the world needs to see it, but because you need to feel it. Your story isn't over, it's just getting started. There's a kind of battle that never makes the headlines. It doesn't leave visible scars or broken bones. It leaves something deeper, something no X-ray or scan can detect. And that's what makes it so hard for the world to understand. You carry it silently. You wake up with it. You go to sleep with it. And every single day you push through, hoping someone might notice, but often no one does. The truth is, most people only believe in what they can see. They'll sympathize with a broken leg, but not with a broken spirit. They'll offer help to someone bleeding physically, but ignore the one who's bleeding emotionally. And yet, it's those hidden battles that often require the greatest courage. You've fought through thoughts that screamed you weren't enough. You've walked through days when anxiety took your breath away. You've wrestled with guilt, shame, fear, all while showing up to life pretending everything was fine. And let me tell you something. That's not weakness. That's strength in its most raw, unfiltered form. Because strength isn't just about lifting heavy weights or conquering external goals. Strength is facing the weight of your own mind and still finding the will to move forward. And here's the powerful truth. Your struggle is valid, even if no one else understands it. You don't need the world to agree with your pain for it to be real. You don't need someone else's approval to justify your journey. Too often, we minimize what we're going through because we're afraid of being judged or misunderstood. But the absence of understanding from others doesn't make your experience any less important. It doesn't mean you're overreacting. It means you're human. Sometimes the most brutal part of the battle isn't the pain itself. It's the loneliness. It's feeling like you're the only one going through it. And that isolation can be suffocating. But what if you knew that others are out there too, silently carrying their own invisible weight? What if you realize that just because people aren't talking about it doesn't mean they're not fighting through it? That awareness alone can start to shift something inside you. It reminds you that you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're just facing something real, something heavy, something profound. You don't have to explain your battle to anyone to make it count. You lived it. You survived it. That alone gives it meaning. And even though most people will never fully understand what you've been through, that doesn't diminish the value of what you've conquered. You are not defined by what others can see. You are defined by the strength it took to carry what they couldn't. So don't dismiss your experience. Don't downplay your survival. You fought and you're still here. And that is more than enough. Pain has a way of leaving its fingerprints on our identity. Whether we like it or not, it shapes us. But how it shapes us, that's what we control. For some, pain becomes a prison, a place they get stuck in, emotionally and mentally, unable to move forward. They replay the trauma, relive the disappointment, and relock themselves in that same cycle of suffering. Whatever the reason, they settle into a world where they don't question their lot because they seek out the same cycle of suffering. But for others, pain becomes a passport, a reason to rise, a reason to evolve, a reason to dig deeper into their own power. That's the difference between staying stuck in the story and using the story as fuel for transformation. You see, pain doesn't care who you are. It shows up uninvited, often unexpected, and sometimes in the moments you least feel capable of handling it. But within that pain is a hidden opportunity, an opening to grow, to expand, to access parts of yourself that comfort and safety will never introduce you to. Nobody finds their strength in the good times. Strength is forged in resistance. It's developed in the fire, not the sunshine. When you've been knocked down, betrayed, abandoned, rejected, or left behind, those moments are your training ground. You don't have to enjoy the pain, but you do have to choose what to do with it. You can allow it to define you by turning you bitter, guarded, and cold, or you can let it refine you, sharpening your clarity, deepening your compassion, and igniting your drive. You don't get stronger by pretending everything's fine. You get stronger by facing the truth, owning your experience, and deciding that the pain doesn't get the final word. That choice alone can change everything. And here's something few people understand. When pain breaks you open, it also exposes the pieces of you that are unshakable. There's a version of you that only rises in the face of real adversity. A stronger, wiser, more resilient version that doesn't emerge when life is easy. You wouldn't wish for the pain to return, but you can be grateful for who you became because of it. That's where real transformation begins, when you stop resenting your past and start recognizing it as the pathway to your power. Don't look at pain as the enemy. It was the doorway. It brought you here. More self-awareness, more focus, more capable of empathy, more equipped to lead. You've seen what darkness feels like, which is why your light now has depth. Your identity isn't just what you've built on the outside. It's who you had to become on the inside to survive. And once you realize that your pain made you stronger, not smaller, you'll never view it the same again. One of the biggest lies we're taught is that we need others to understand our journey for it to matter. That somehow, if the world doesn't validate our struggle, it must not be real. But here's the truth. The path you've walked is yours alone. And the fact that others can't see, feel, or grasp what you've been through doesn't make it any less significant. You don't need anyone's approval to justify your pain. You don't need someone to nod and say, I get it, in order to heal. Healing is an internal process. It's deeply personal. And the power to move forward has never been dependent on external understanding. Most people are too busy managing their own chaos to truly comprehend yours. And if you're waiting for everyone to see you, to recognize the depth of your experience, you may wait your whole life. But here's the shift. The moment you stop needing them to get it is the moment you reclaim your power. Because freedom doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself, from being grounded in your own truth, from knowing, yes, I went through hell, and no, you don't need to understand it, because I do. Letting go of that need for validation doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you no longer measure your growth by the reactions of others. It means you stop shrinking your truth just to make it easier for people to digest. You stop editing your story to avoid discomfort or confusion. You tell it the way it is, raw, real, and honest, because you're not seeking applause, you're seeking alignment. You want to be whole, not just accepted. There's something powerful that happens when you embrace your journey without explanation. You become free from approval, free from judgment, free from the pressure to make your pain palatable for others. Some people will never understand what it took for you to simply stand up today. They won't grasp the courage it took to keep breathing when it felt like the walls were closing in. But that's okay. They weren't supposed to. It wasn't their lesson to learn. It was yours. So stop waiting for permission to be proud of your survival. Stop hoping someone else will validate your resilience. The fact that you've come this far is evidence enough. You're still here, you're still growing, and you've proven that you can carry yourself through the storms no one else saw. That makes your story not just valid, but powerful. And when you realize you never needed them to understand in the first place, you'll finally be free to live your life without apology. There comes a time when you realize that the very thing you've been hiding, your pain, your past, your scars, is actually the source of your strength. For too long, you were taught to keep it quiet. Don't show weakness. Don't talk about the struggle. Just smile and keep going. So you buried it. You buried the parts of yourself that were still hurting, still healing. But in doing that, you also buried your power. Because the truth is, your scars are not signs of shame. They're signs of survival. They're the proof that you went through something and made it out the other side. Transformation doesn't begin when everything is perfect. It begins the moment you stop apologizing for your truth. When you stop seeing your scars as something to hide and start recognizing them as evidence of your growth, that's when your real power shows up. You don't owe anyone a sanitized version of who you are. You don't need to cut out the parts of your story that make people uncomfortable, because those parts, the raw, painful, messy moments, are where the magic lives. That's where your strength was born. Too often we seek to look put together so others don't question us. We try to keep things neat on the outside while chaos brews inside. But healing doesn't happen through image. It happens through truth. And the truth is, every scar on your soul carries a story, a lesson, a breakthrough, a moment where you chose not to quit. That's nothing to be ashamed of. That's everything to be proud of. You don't need to erase your past to rise. You need to integrate it, to use it, to stand on it. Because the moment you stop running from your story, it stops running your life. You become the one in control, not your pain, not your past, not what people said or didn't say. You take ownership. And ownership is the gateway to transformation. What you once thought made you broken is actually what makes you relatable, what makes you human, what makes you capable of leading others out of their own pain. Because people don't connect to perfection, they connect to real. And you, in all your truth, in all your scars, are exactly what someone else needs to see to believe that healing is possible. So stop hiding, stop shrinking, stop apologizing for what shaped you. There's nothing weak about your wounds. There's nothing wrong with your journey. When you embrace it fully, when you speak it out loud without shame, you give others permission to do the same. That's how transformation spreads, not by pretending to be flawless, but by showing the strength it took to become whole. There's a fire inside you, even if right now it feels like a flicker. That fire is the part of you that refuses to quit, even when your mind tells you to. It's what got you through the moments you thought you'd never survive. It's what pulled you back up every time you hit rock bottom. And that fire, that emotional intensity, that deep well of pain you carry can either consume you or fuel you. You get to decide which one it becomes. Because emotional pain doesn't have to be your enemy. It can be your greatest resource if you learn how to harness it. Pain is energy, and energy by nature moves. You can let it move through you and work for you, or you can let it stay trapped and work against you. When you suppress it, when you ignore it, it starts to build pressure. It shows up in your relationships, in your health, in your habits. But when you face it, when you really look it in the eye and ask what it came to teach you, something shifts. You stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. You begin to realize that everything you felt, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loneliness, was building a level of emotional resilience that can't be taught in books or seminars. It was earned. There is a strength in emotional pain that, when redirected, becomes unstoppable momentum. The key is in the shift from asking, why is this happening to me, to what can I create from this? That's when you stop playing defense and start playing offense. That's when you stop being the victim of your emotions and start being the architect of your growth. It doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means it now has a purpose. Think about the people who've made the biggest impact in your life. They weren't untouched by hardship. They were shaped by it. They used it. They channeled their pain into purpose, their anger into action, their grief into growth. And so can you. But it starts with a decision. I will not let this break me. I will not let this define me. I will not keep reliving the past. I will repurpose it. The same fire that once burned you can now be the same fire that lights your way. When you take all that emotional energy and aim it at your goals, your healing, your higher self, there's nothing that can stop you. You begin to operate from a place of clarity and strength rather than confusion and survival. You're not just coping anymore. You're creating. And once you tap into that, once you feel what it's like to turn pain into power, you'll never look at your emotions the same again. There's something incredible that happens when you survive what should have broken you. You become the very proof that someone else needs. Most people don't realize it while they're in the pain. They don't see how their story, their survival, their resilience could mean anything to anyone else. But once you come out the other side, once you realize that you're still standing after everything you've been through, you start to understand that your story isn't just for you. It's a lifeline for someone else who's drowning in silence. Your strength becomes their permission. Your voice becomes their hope. Your journey becomes their roadmap. Too often, people wait until they feel completely healed, completely figured out, before they think their story is worth sharing. But it's not about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about showing someone, hey, I've been where you are, I felt what you're feeling, and I found a way through. That's not weakness, that's leadership. That's impact. Because the greatest teachers are not the ones who've lived perfect lives. They're the ones who've walked through fire and still found a way to love, to grow, to give. You may not realize it now, but the battles you fought, the nights you cried in silence, the days you got up with nothing left, those moments carry more value than you think. They're not just painful memories, they're powerful tools. Tools you can use to connect, to guide, to lift someone who's on the verge of giving up. Because there are people right now going through the very things you've survived, and they don't see a way out. But if they saw you, if they heard your truth, they might believe in the possibility of healing. They might believe in themselves. That's why it's not selfish to share your story, it's service. Your scars, when you allow them to be seen, become someone else's survival guide. You don't have to have every answer. You just have to be real. And that realness is rare in a world full of filters and facades. It's what people are starving for: truth, depth, and someone who isn't afraid to say, I made it through. You've come too far to keep your journey locked inside. It's not just about celebrating how far you've come. It's about helping someone else begin. Your story story holds power, not in the polished version, but in the raw, honest truth. You fought battles no one may ever fully understand, but someone out there needs to know that survival is possible because you lived it. And when you choose to be a light in someone else's darkness, that's when your pain finds its highest purpose. That's when your story becomes someone else's turning point.